Board of Education meeting will now come to order at 6:32 p.m. Secretary, please call the roll. Here.
Rose. Here. Carl.
Here.
Hitzke. Here. Karen. Absent. Billetier here. Tabire. Here.
Okay. Moving on to citizen comments. Do we have anyone present this evening who wishes to address the board tonight? Don't see anybody. Do we have anybody online who wishes to address the board? No. Okay. Then moving on, the next item on our agenda is the Board of Education comments. Obviously, we've started back to school, so hope everyone, those of you that are teaching and in the education field, had a good week. You know, back. But that's the only. Does anyone else have any pieces that they want to before we get to the next?
Yeah, I just wanted to say congrats to the business office. I saw in the last Friday update that they received the ASPO International Certificate of Excellence in Finance Reporting. And I think that is, we've received that in the past and continue to receive it. So congrats.
We're gonna, well, hold on.
Do you want to do the code of
Do
conduct?
you want to do that first?
Yeah.
Okay, then let's go ahead and do the code of. Yes, okay, we are gonna go ahead, Eric, sorry. The code of conduct. We highlight one of the Board of Education code of conduct each meeting, and Eric will get us today.
Today we're on number 2. It says, I will avoid any conflict of interest or the appearance of impropriety which could result from my position and will not use my board membership for personal gain or publicity. The author goes on to say, what does this mean? Telling a coach you can help him, her, if he, she reciprocates a favor, steering the board into hiring the dairy that purchases your milk from your farm, buying gas from your brother's station, pushing to hire a relative because he, she is a relative. These types of conflicts of interest must be avoided.
Thank you.
Thank
So now we'll call Dr. Myers to recognize a member of our community.
Good evening, members of the board, community members, administration. Tonight is one of those nights where it is a bittersweet, but we're also very happy for Nikki. Nikki Eric has stepped down as being the president of our STEAM Foundation, one of the founders. And if you've had a chance to experience the STEAM Foundation and all the events they do, you know the influence that Nikki's had, not just in this area, but for District 75, for District 120, and our entire community. When Nikki had sent us the email saying that she was stepping down, it was like, oh, great, oh no moment. And knowing that we weren't going to be seeing her as much, but I've encouraged to see her just as much as we possibly can. But I think more importantly, and a credit to her and her leadership, she's also developed people to be able to keep going from where she has started. So it got me thinking about what defined the time that I've been able to know Nikki and what she's been able to do for the STEAM Foundation. Words to mind came passionate, driven, dedicated, students first. All those things to me came to fruition when you start thinking about just where the STEAM Foundation went. People really didn't know really what STEAM used to be. Science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics, all combined. And that's such a critical part about what we have at District 75. I think a lot of that's branched off for our robotics program. And you see how those young individuals are excelling in those fields, especially when once they've left District 75. Even while they're here, you can see the awards they get. To Nikki's credit, the group has done numerous donations for student needs, staff needs, supported through our band program through a summer initiative to try to make sure more students get enrichment during the 4th grade summer. And then you look at the opportunities for having enrichment in the STEAM programming, whether it's during the summer or during the winter. We're always doing everything that the foundation could to make that available. And they're able to make that available through the countless events that they had, whether it was the pizza throwdown or the night at the races where you got everybody in the school district community gambling and races that were videotaped, and we all had a great time at doing it. It was one of those times that when you looked at that, she also even went out to Medline and was able to secure donations through that avenue. And I think one of the core things that you see through the leadership of Nikki is she's bringing people together in all these events for the common purpose of our students and our community. So with that, Nikki, we say thank you. We appreciate you. Please come forward. And because in honor of your effort, we want to present you with plaques and get an award. With gratitude for your dedication to serving others as well as your legacy of compassion and generosity in the District 75 community.
Wow.
So great thanks.
Wow.
Thank you. Appreciate it
you.
very much.
It's my pleasure.
Oh, there we go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sure she's gonna stick around and watch all the really interesting stuff from our board. Believe me, but no. Okay. Moving on to our District 75 reports, and you like said, welcome to stay, but thank you for coming. Thanks, Chris. Get set up.
We're ready when you're ready.
Okay, we are ready to proceed with the next item on our agenda is the District 75 reports. Starting with the business office.
And Dave Zarumba will be giving the summer projects update. So they'll be going through the different items that they've been working on the past 2.5 months.
Hello, board. Hello, admin. Hello, people out there. And Georgina, welcome. This is my first board meeting to be with you. So welcome to the District 75 board meeting. I am here to give a facility update for all the project we work on. I want to start out first by talking about something that's been put out there that we've had some air conditioning problems in the summer or in the last couple of weeks. We have worked through them. We have a plan going to put them through. There's a plan that's working. We do have cool rooms at the moment. They're put together manually. We were able to open all the valves manually, so the rooms are cold and they're cooled enough. We also have a backup plan for fans and blowers that are stocked in the gym, and the custodians know if there's a call, they need to bring them to the rooms. So I just wanted to give that update before we start. So on our agenda tonight, next screen, please. I'm going to give improvements on Washington, Mechanics Grove, Carl Sandburg, some ADA compliant projects and other projects that we have completed. Next, correct. First thing we're going to talk about is Lincoln School. We've put a lot of time into Lincoln School this summer. Just like we have in other buildings in the past summers. First picture we're going to look at is the far left, was a storage room in the back of Lincoln. It was the original library of Lincoln in the past. It was filled with 4 districts full of storage. We have utilized all of that, utilized other spaces to put that storage in, and from 1,000 square feet, we gave people about 250 square feet. So we don't have so much of other district stuff in the buildings. We turned that space into 3 usable spaces. The second screen is an occupational therapy room. Fortunately, you're seeing it before it was set up. It was right when we got done with it. Second one is a new conference room. The third one is a teacher's workspace. There is also on the opposite end of this, a teacher's where we set up some tables, some one-on-one area for the teachers to work instead of doing artwork like they have in this space. Next screen, please. Then this screen shows the main office. In the first picture, you could see where the walls were beige, carpet was black. We changed it up. We brought both secretaries together so they could look out the front window of the office so they could have their eyes on anybody coming in the door. The final picture is the old multi-purpose room, and we turned it into a secondary gym, a lower level gym. So any children, we don't have to bring everybody up to the upstairs gym. We could have a gym downstairs and a gym upstairs for the students. All of this was put together through Jamie DiCarlo, Cindy Cementa, Belinda Giargo, and my team did about 90% of the work. So we didn't have to outsource much of the work. This was also paid for by Preschool for All grants called the PFA grant. Next screen, please.
Would you like me out?
Oh, yeah.
So our next screen is our improvements that we have done at Washington. We redid the basketball court, as you can see in the left picture. We redid all of the asphalt. We did raisable backboards for students of that age, so community can come play on 8 foot, and then we also put lower ones in for the kids. They're adjustable by a crank. On the right picture, you could see an ADA compliant concrete ramp. There used to be a 4-inch step right here. We have a child over there that is has a disability. All he has is a wheelchair, so we had to make this ramp so he can get in and out of the building to the playground easier. This was all paid by the operations budget. Next picture, please. We also improved the front office. The front office on the left picture, this window you see in the middle picture used to be behind that door. The staff couldn't see the front door of the building. So you see on the right picture, we moved the office to the right side. And if you see from the inside view, they can now see out the window to the door. So now all schools have eyes on the front door, not through a camera or through a wall. Also, it makes it compliant because it puts it in a holding area. We're locked in with doors. We also put in all of our security cameras now are on screen so they can see all school cameras from their desks. Next screen, please. This is Mechanics Grove. Just like all the other schools, we did Carl Sandburg last year and we did Washington last year. This year we did new sensory rooms in Mechanics Grove and Lincoln. You can see on the left where you have some sensory lighting and some activities for the kids to be using. Also at Mechanics Grove, we removed 3 different sets of doors in the middle picture. We opened up the doors with more glass so it's more visible. You could see through the door. All of this was paid for a state board COPS grant 50-50. We paid 50% of it and the state paid 50% of it. Next screen, please. Carl Sandburg, the improvements from Carl Sandburg were all done through a COPS grant and also through shared services with Dan Crow. Dan Crow and his team ordered all of the supplies, got the wiring run. My team came in and installed all the new clocks and worked with Dan Crow's team through shared services to get it all tied in together. So the top left picture shows the old clocks that were put in 1958 when the school was built. We've upgraded them to the lower right, which also has the intercom and the clocks on them. They also have a strobe light in the dead center of them, which is blinks for emergency. Top right are the new hallway clocks. We've put multiple throughout the hallways. And the last part of this project is we put phones in every classroom. In the past, teachers used to have to go share a copy room phone and they'd line up 3, 4, 5 deep just to make phone calls. Now they can do it in their classrooms. The right side of this,
Dave, how do the phones help with if they needed to do an emergency call from the room?
they can call the front office or just they could hit an operator and it puts an emergency call out throughout the whole school. Instead of having to hit the call button and explaining what's going on, they can make that emergency call themselves. The right side of the screen, we replaced through the school maintenance grant, which is the 50-50 grant that I just talked about. We replaced all of the doorknobs at Carl Sandburg to ADA compliant doorknobs and also putting kick plates so the doors can't be kicked in case of an emergency. Next screen, please. A couple of the things we have done to make the school ADA compliant is we put automatic door openers on all of the front doors. Also, we put raising changing tables in one bathroom in each of the schools. Next screen, please. Other projects that we have completed is we did some renovation upstairs. We started the renovation by removing the walls so we can in the future put some office space up there and some more storage for some of the paperwork that has to be stored in the building. Another project we've worked on is we took a part of my shop, which is over on Idlewood, and added a second office for a new shared service administrator for Kevin Quinn and myself. We added chemical pot feeders and filters to all the HVA system, and the benefit to that is it filters out all of the antifreeze that is going through the system, so the antifreeze lasts longer and is a a benefit to the air conditioning system. We replaced 22 leaky valves, which were at Lincoln School. Working with our shared service HVAC guy, he decided changing the valves was probably the best option. But we went with a contractor doing it for the warranty part of it instead of doing it in-house. We cleaned up all the unit vents and coils throughout the district, and we upgraded all the student lunch hot carts. And that benefits because they're more energy efficient. Those are the hot carts that we cook at Carl Sandburg, and then we bring it to all of the school for the student lunches. So we upgraded all of those through a Fund 11 grant through T. Does anybody have any questions?
I don't have a question, I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
This is very impressive,
Thank you, Ray.
as usual. I mean, when we first started with you guys doing the paving and marking, and it's expanded to this. I don't know. I wish there was some way that the community could be aware of the work that you're doing. And the dollars and the thoughts that go into the grants, securing the grants, and the dollars that we're able to save, and the improvements that are being made on an ongoing basis. So my hat's off to you.
Thank you,
Good
sir.
job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I'll pass that on to my team.
Yeah, I also just wanted to say thanks for all the hard work over the summer, because those spaces really have a huge impact on teaching and learning. I love all the ADA updates. I know you mentioned the one at Washington just for that one student, but that's something that will remain there for future students too. So it's really great. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
The only question I have is, I know last year we mentioned something about that lift, and I know it was in Mechanics Grove or something, and
It was at Lincoln.
like Lincoln with like, I know pieces and shipments. Is that still?
We're still working through it. It took a little hurdle. Things have changed in the laws. We had to, instead of just going through our ROE, we had to now go through our local fire department. We had to go through state permitting. We have all of that in order. They just sent me an update this morning, 6 to 8 weeks, the lift will be ready. So then I'll be scheduling, getting the new lift put in.
Awesome.
So probably about 10 weeks, the lift will be in. Anybody else?
That was gonna be my question.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So one of the things I'll brag on Dave for, he mentioned the COPS grant. So Dave and his team, Dave really applied for that COPS grant again, roughly a year and a half ago. So we'd received it once before in a partnership with 120 in the police department. So when Dave referenced that COPS grant, the stuff that he wrote in to start working on this, the district was able to get in that grant roughly $370,000 through federal support. And the district's obligation to that is adding roughly 130 for a total of $500,000. So he did a great job getting that grant to be able to fund a lot of these projects, to make it happen. So people ask, what are you doing to try to be mindful of the consumers, their tax dollars? That's a great example for it.
Sorry, I would add again too, you mentioned outsourcing the HVAC to get that warranty, and I think that's great because we did want to be able to do that stuff ourselves, but that's a smart move to outsource for that so that we can get the warranty. So
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, next we have the reports of human resources. Shane.
Good evening. So for your review and consideration, I have only 3 job descriptions this time. But it is highlighted by the new deputy superintendent position. Additionally, there is an update in the supervisor for the building principals, and then a change in job title to the grants and Medicaid supervisor. If there are no questions regarding that, and while I have the podium, I'd like to preemptively share some information with you about our staffing as we enter this new school year. So right now, we have a vacancy for a special ed teacher at Carl Sandburg that is being accommodated with an overload that is on tonight's personnel report. And then we are currently seeking to fill 4 paraprofessional positions, 3 at Carl Sandburg and 1 at Lincoln.
Prospects look for filling those.
For the paraprofessional positions, those have been a challenge for some time. We did, I think even within the last calendar year, evaluate the pay for that and raise that, and that did provide some relief. Right now, it's more about time. But we can still, we still are building a pool. And we've changed our strategy in terms of recruiting, rather than focusing exclusively on education. Job websites, we're now using Indeed, which is reaching a broader base of candidates looking for work.
And special ed, gonna be the same, basically the same thing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Okay, moving on to the report of the superintendent's office.
There are two items in my section of the board packet. The first one is the second reading on press 112. And the recommendations stand the same. We did include in your manila folder, should have that, the actual changes that we're requesting. And it is in regards to board policy 5230, with student discipline. The change there is removing the word principal and replacing it with assistant principal. And then it's board policy 870, accommodations with disabilities, and it's removing the superintendent as a designee and putting in the assistant superintendent for student services or the principal. So those are the only two modifications that we're recommending going forward right now for this policy, and that's what we'd recommend.
Just for clarification, those are district edits. Those are different than the ones that Press Plus has recommended because those are applicable to our district based on our org chart and what we're doing. And I know he had mentioned that to us before, but I asked if we could just have a printout so we can all see. I knew that there were minor changes, but I thought that that would be helpful to see. So we all knew what we were approving or disproving tonight. We vote for that. So thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. And then, are there any questions on the changes? Good. Then the second item in my area is regards to CEDAW. And you know, where Eric's has an update. He'll go through a lot of this as well. So long and short of it, roughly 2 weeks ago, I know I shared with all of you a report from the third party exceptional learning group. Partners, I believe it was. They did an evaluation of CEDAW in their programming, and they provided a 104-page report. In that 104-page report, there are some concerning topics they bring forward in regards to the inability for CEDAW to provide a sufficient staffing, violating students' free and appropriate education, with how students are being placed. And then also looking at idea violations potentially because of students not being placed in the least restrictive environment at times, following with the IEP paperwork. And there's a number of recommendations that company has made that we need to consider. CEDAW will, because there are financial connections to it. And along the same concerns with their purchase of Fairhaven. There was a number of items in there listed as to questioning potentially why they bought that property. If you haven't read that report, I'm asking all of you to please read it. You need to. It's that serious. Because of what's in that document, we as a school district, for our families we currently send and have sent to CEDAW, are liable. Because the document clearly states CEDAW did not have a curriculum. They did not place students appropriately. Family can come back and say something to us. So not only are we liable for our own families, and rightfully so, right? We want to make sure our children, our students are getting the best education they possibly can get. We are also liable because we're a member district of CEDAW for any other community who brings forward this concern. From my lens, that certainly transpires into some grave concern for us, not only now, but in the future with how we work with CEDAW. They do have a meeting tomorrow. I think we need to get some answers from them. In light of this, what I am asking from the board tonight is that you authorize me if we get enough information to be able to make a determination, then I would be able to sign paperwork saying District 75 would like to be considered withdrawing from CEDAW. And I'm asking that because if you don't, then we would need to have another special meeting to bring that in to go through and have that decision identified from the board. So what would take place? I would certainly email all of you or call you and let you know what's going on. I'm imagining it'd be a team effort. Eric and I would work through that. I'd be working with Jamie and be able to say, here's what we think we should do and why. And then to be able to move forward, at least so you're informed. How does this impact us? It's something that we're still working through more. What Jamie has been able to share, she shared with me earlier today, we have 5 students that are currently enrolled in CEDAW programming. And we're currently working with one family who has come forward and said they'd like to seek an alternate site. So we may be down to 4. So the impact for us is from that stance, can we manage it? It's possible, but we need to be able to, and I need to be able to work with Jamie to make sure the services the students should be receiving, we can replicate or make sure we can have for them. So my request is for the board to approve tonight, authorizing me to be able to make that statement to CEDAW if it's determined it is in our district's best interest to do that. And there's no guarantee we'd be withdrawn, by the way. You're essentially you would be allowing me to start that process. There's a couple options. CEDAW could say, yeah, we agree, we're gonna let you go and just make it nice and easy. Or there could be a part where they would not want to go through that process, where a voluntary withdrawal. And we'd have to go through the Regional Office of Education and have a hearing before the Regional Office Board of Education. And then they would ultimately determine whether or not they felt District 75 could sufficiently educate and support their students' needs.
You have reached out to our council as well, that has helped advise you on this request that you're making from the board, correct?
Yes,
And that's part of why you're asking us to authorize that
yes.
for you.
So, you know, good point. In our contract and all member school districts agreement with CEDAW, we are to give CEDAW 12 months notice before wanting to withdraw from the co-op. And so that means before the start of the school year, essentially, August 1st. In reviewing the information with our school attorney, and seeing when we received the report, meaning we received that 104-page report on July 25th. There was a summary meeting on July 27th. There really wasn't sufficient time in our eyes to be able to make an informed decision on what we want to be able to do before the start of the school year. So we'd want to be able to explore what the opportunity for them to extend that option and extend the option saying we're going to leave because we have an extra month because we got the information so late.
Rather than waiting, because once we give that notice, then that time ticks for 12 months. So rather than essentially, if we were to follow the agreement and make that now and not ask for the change, we'd really be waiting almost 2 years.
Correct.
Before we could actually withdraw, if that was the decision we decided on.
Yep.
But the concern could be that the liability, like I said, if we have liability, then is that extending that out? And so I personally would rather authorize him to make that decision if that's what he feels is best, so that we can mitigate our liability and do what's best for our kids and at least explore whether or not we can do that sooner, because with only short notice, to me, that's not that big of a difference. If, you know, it's not like we're waiting until March to give them notice. I mean, we're trying to do this as quickly as possible. So I'm in support of that.
If you read their report, I mean, it's very damning. And for us to stand mute and not take any action, and this is action, that I think puts us in a bad position. So I think it's very important that we start putting things in place so that we have options to be able to move in and ensure that our district, our students are protected And not only with what's happened, but even with the liability, and the litigation that might come out of this. And I would just like to make another comment. The superintendent mentioned, you know, if you haven't read that report, that you should read it. And I would suggest to you that even if you read it and you focus in a very narrow vision to just see it all, that you should go back and look at it again. And I'll call your attention to 2 months ago. I think it was 2 months ago at the board meeting, when we were having a discussion about the organizational changes that we were instituting and that have been put in place, and how significant that has become in light of this report. So these consultants go into CEDAW and they lay out all of the shortcomings, whether it be span of control, where you've got assistant directors and superintendents managing half of the CEDAW organization, and they can't do it. It's physically impossible to do it, and as a result of that, everything starts falling through the cracks. And when they start looking at how they're making decisions on students, it's not what the needs of the student are. This is what concerns me about our district too. It's where there's an empty seat. So we're gonna put you over here, and you might be in a whole different environment, rather than where you should be. And mentioning Fairhaven, I mean, that there's just so many things, and if you look at what we're doing, what we've done with our organization, restructure and the organizational chart as it looks now, and what the thought process were that went into that, it's reinforced by what they told CEDAW their shortcomings were. So we have in essence gotten in front of a CEDAW issue by doing what the superintendent has recommended with the organizational changes. So
I know Eric will give us a lot more.
Yeah, and then I would just say, I agree with everybody here. Thing that stands out the most to me is that, you know, free and appropriate public education is being violated. Ray, you mentioned programming placement. Students are not in their least restrictive environment. There's a, you know, great reform process here, but it's years-long process. And if we have this report telling us that exceptional services are not being provided to our students, and we're knowingly seeking those services and continuing to employ those services, then, you know, we need to think about how responsible we're being if we're seeking those and knowingly employing those. And we also mentioned liability too. If we're knowingly seeking these services that are being reported on this way, you know, that falls back on the district. And we have some questions prepared that we've been told will be addressed tomorrow, so I can give you some of the things that we've met with, and I can talk a little bit more when we do our CEDAW presentation, but
It's actually there now, right?
Yeah.
Or is it, yeah, well, it's, yeah, committee reports, but
so I was able to meet with a couple other local board members here just to kind of develop some questions that we would like addressed. And this email was sent to CEDAW, and I've been assured that these concerns will be addressed tomorrow. They just highlight some of the major concerns that we have.
This is what you did with 120s, the two members, 120s board, right?
127.
Yeah, sorry.
Things to consider with that reform process is the cost. Whose responsibility are these costs going to be? Because they're talking about major hires and administration changes. We haven't been told yet who's going to be responsible for covering those costs. One of the major issues that was reported on is safety, and that is one of the high priorities in the reform process. However, it's, you know, hoping to be done within 6 months. And within those 6 months, there's still some major safety concerns that have been identified in that report.
Is there I guess for lack of a better way of putting it, a line where you're gonna say, okay, that's it, we want to withdraw? Or, okay, let's see how it goes going forward. Do you have something set in your mind, I know answering these questions is probably part of that,
Yeah.
but is there anything besides that?
I mean, in my mind, the fact that we know students are not in their least restrictive environment and that idea and faith is being violated, that's a line for me.
Yeah, because one of the things mentioned in here is about the staff not caring. And I think especially in CEDAW, that's a really important point. If going forward, it doesn't appear that that's going to get corrected, and it should be something that should be corrected immediately. That would be, I guess, in my mind, a no-brainer for us to withdraw. Because not only are we not servicing our students, even though it's only a minuscule amount, it's not going to benefit county, basically.
And we feel like we're in a position to service that in this district now.
Well, that's part of the line. Emily, we've got to make sure and talking with who we have connections with, that yes, we can do it the way we feel the services our students should receive. So part of that line is, if we don't feel we can service our students appropriately, we're not going to be able to remove ourselves in.
At least at this point.
Yes. And I think to add to that, I think part of it's looking a little bit more individualized. So while there's certainly a number of things that need to be corrected according to the report, there are some programs in CEDAW that were seen as being proficient. I'll just put it that way.
Mhm.
And it's looking about, are our students in those programs or not? And does that give us time to maybe be able to create and maybe even be proactive with CEDAW, saying, hey, we can do this if you allow us to do X. And hopefully have it seen as a proactive measure that gives CEDAW a chance to keep some of the strong programming they have and let the other member districts be able to bring their kids back to their home school.
And as we had in the personnel report, not having an open position for special ed isn't going to help us a whole lot either in trying to make that decision. Because
No. We are in a very good shape though, staffing wise. I know
Yeah.
missing one role is tough. There's other districts that are in double digits. And we're not even close. And that's kudos to everybody that's involved, from HR, building principals, board, school environment that it's created. So, well,
I like the idea of empowering you though to make that decision based on that, because you do have to weigh all those factors, because we are mindful of the fact that the contract does require certain things. So technically, it's a matter of figuring out we don't want to, if we just say, yes, we're withdrawing, we're technically violating our contract. And then it's a matter of, are we exposing ourselves to liability, but which is more like liability. And that's what we have to empower Kevin to listen to what they have to say and make that decision, because I think we all support that, he's not going to do if we can't deliver for our students. We don't want to do that either, because that puts us in a worse position. So we have to see what their response is going to be and what that is, but without having to have then a delay of another couple week meeting and a couple week and doing, whatever needs to be done. We want to make sure that we're doing it with thoughtfulness in mind, and weighing the liabilities on all fronts and doing what we can to mitigate those damages, and what could be damages that we hope not to be. So I appreciate that approach a lot more than just saying, well, we're past the deadline. Let's just, we'll have to wait another year. Well, this will be an August 1st decision next year, because that doesn't seem right to me. So I definitely am supportive of the request.
you heard about everybody. Georgie, what do you think?
Thank you.
I could tell.
All for me, and then you got Eric for too. Thank you.
So we're moving on to the committee updates. Do we want to go a little out of turn since we're sort of on this topic and let Eric kind of go with the representative update on the CEDAW before we kind of go back to the rest of them?
Yeah.
Just because it seems to make sense in this thing.
I don't know that I really have
Okay.
much more to say other than that. There are other districts that are, thinking about these same things and raising these same questions. We do want to explore options, just like Dr. Myers mentioned. There are things that are happening in CEDAW that are very positive and that, are strengths of theirs. So, we do want to hear from them and see what their input is. They will be responding to these questions. So that is important to consider. But again, I just keep thinking about, the students that are impacted while this is ongoing and while this year's long reform process is happening. They're impacted by it during this entire time.
Okay.
I don't know that I have.
That's okay. No, I wanted to let you finish your statement rather than coming back like,
Um,
7 down on the list.
That
so.
meeting is tomorrow, so I will go to that and then I can give you some responses to these questions, as they're addressed.
Okay.
And I guess if there's maybe anything else that you would be interested in hearing about, let me know.
Trust the 4 of you meeting and doing that. You've covered that. Just looking through it. I don't think I have anything else to add, but I guess if anyone does, email Eric so that he can get to that.
And one thing that I would suggest, Eric, the group talked about this today, a couple of the items that you felt were proactive measures for the board to keep everybody else informed. Can you share a couple of those with everybody? And the reason being, it shows that as a district, we're trying to be proactive and trying to help say, what can we do to stay on track to get some of these interventions done? Then I think then we have it on record at our board meeting, this request was made.
One of the things we did talk about is throughout this reform process, will we be receiving updates to let us know that these things are being accomplished and what the timeline is, so we can understand how this is being followed and if improvements are being made. So we have asked that we would get continuous updates throughout this process, or maybe there'd be additional meetings where we would get updates on this. I think by putting these questions out there, we are being good stewards by showing our responsibility and saying that we understand these concerns and that we want to be proactive and take measures so that it doesn't ultimately come back and impact our students negatively or the district with any kind of liability.
I think the other one you guys identified that reminded me was the other closed session.
We did ask, so big concern there is, administrative personnel and also just the administrative structure. We did request, if necessary, that we would be willing to go into closed session to talk about those. Because right now, there's a very top-down approach to the administrative process here. In the report, they talk about, giving more principals more say in the process, but right now that isn't being changed. So we did say if they would be willing to, we'd go into closed session so that we could talk more about administrative procedures and administrative personnel evaluations and how people are being held accountable and what changes are being made to make improvements.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I just thought that made more sense. So thank you for indulging from that representative update out of order. Okay, going through the committee updates. So starting first with board policy. Dr. Myers went through the press policy plus, and at the in the packets it's on page 32, there was like an Excel spreadsheet that shows the highlights of each of the changes that press policy was looking for. And then whether or not, the proposal was to adopt it as presented, or that's what I was asking about the 2 that say adopted with additional district edits. So that's an example of, it's a relatively short one this month. So it's a good, dive in for Georgie and for Marcella to take a look at. She couldn't join us tonight, but I know she, did look through these. to see what was being proposed. So in going through, obviously, we didn't have any additional edits. I'm not making any recommendations for additional edits more over and above what the admin had asked for in those two that are there, but that just highlights what to look for. Is that first spreadsheet kind of tells you where to go, and the rest of it, you know, it's like looking at a red line document. You can see what changes they've requested and what haven't. Some of them have, in some months, have those questions for us to answer. There were no questions in this one. So I think we've talked about that enough, and you know, that'll be on the board agenda tonight for voting to approve that, since today is the second and final reading. So from the policy committee, we're not recommending anything different than what the admin is recommending. And then the other part of our typical is going through our section 15 tonight. So taking our one section this month and going through to highlight just on an education front for our board members, since we cut it down to a smaller section. Which is in the sixes. I don't pretend to have it memorized. 104-page report. That's 7. Okay. All right, so going through section 6. So this is talking about some of these special programs and instructional resources are the two that are up. You can see that just looking at a highlight, section 6.220 had been removed from our policies since our last going through this, because that had been removed under the current collective bargaining agreement that we entered into last year. So that's no longer part of our policies. But going through special programs, some of these don't totally apply, you know, like programs for students at risk of academic failure, dropping out of school. I'm not saying that we don't have a problem for that, but I think that's primarily geared towards high schools than it is towards the elementary. We do talk about in the sections having to do with, you know, what those programs should have to include. We talk about education of children with disabilities. Timely noted, you know, which talks about in section 120, some of those things we've heard language outside the free appropriate public education, the least restrictive environment, etc. So those are part of our policies, which are timely. Just to be aware of. The 6130 is program for the gifted. So I know in our district, they do have different programs, and we do have, you know, staff that help with that, and they run like Project Challenge and things like that for some of our kids. So this is just saying that we will have this, and that the Board of Education will monitor this program's performance on a regular basis. And I know we hear from the like Cindy Samenta a couple times a year on some of these things. So that's how we monitor that. Accelerated placements. I think we've talked about this too when we were talking about curriculum in the past, in that we do have the ability, not all kids get placed at the same level. We do have different differentiation of levels and how they do that with our data testing and where that goes. So we do, if they are doing that in accordance with our policies. Education of homeless children. I know there's federal laws that require certain things and transportation and such that our district's responsible for under federal law. And so this sets that forth. Same thing with 6145 migrant students. We have to have, you know, programs and in place to deal with that in accordance with federal law. Home and hospital instruction. Again, we've dealt with that a little bit in the past. When a child is out for periods of time, we have obligations to that as well. And there's our policy sets forth some of that. it's, you know, kicks in, appropriate educational services from qualified staff will begin no later than 5 school days after receiving a written statement from the doctor or physician's assistant, et cetera. So it's not for all kids that are sick, it's, you know, after a period of time. 6160 talks about English learners, and so we do have a policy on that, and obviously, and we hear on a regular basis all the different between the dual language programs and how we deal with, we have leveraged that. I think we turned it into a strength, you know, in our district in order to help do a dual language so that we're not just teaching the English language learners in a separate classroom. We are doing that within our programs. So that's highlights some of that. And the parent involvement, since we have some of those other committees, that works really well together. As part of that, the Title I programs, we hear about that a lot in terms of grants and some of our other pieces. So that's all in there talking about our the requirements in Title I and how our district as a superintendent or designee develops various things in accordance with federal law. Extended instructional programs. We hear that, you know, with our preschool, obviously we don't provide that for everybody, but for those that qualify in accordance with state law and the philosophy that we have set forth in here, we've got all of that in, and that includes the Saturday. I guess that's one comment to point out, it still calls it Saturday Scholars instead of Saturday Steamers, so maybe that's something that we should look at updating that in the future. And that's for those not aware, that's the program that they do usually in the winter and in January to March timeframe. On Saturdays, that's enrichment programs and courses that take place over at Sandberg, but is open to different grade levels of kids based on different offerings. Plus before and after school programs that we have throughout the school, the Jumpstart program. This summer school that we run. You hear about every year. And extra and co-curricular activities, our policy sets forth, you know, academic criteria for participation, K-8, and you know, just sets forth the various policy and the fees for that. Now, one thing to think about that I hadn't really put into place since we had updated. It says, you know, the superintendent must approve an activity in order for it to be considered a district sponsored extracurricular or co-curricular using the following criteria. Fees assessed are reasonable and not to exceed the cost of operations, et cetera. But this is, since this is extra and co-curricular, that's different because it says these do not include field trips, and field trips are what we had we're not charging for those anymore, but that's a different issue because it's specifically not field trips.
Does it say superintendent or designee or just superintendent?
This says superintendent must approve an activity for it to be considered. Is that something that you still do?
So it's something that we did talk through. So usually if something's coming up from a building, it ultimately needs to come to the board for final approval, because of approval like an activity, there's usually a sponsor connected to it, which usually means we need to get a student activity account attached to it. And so it's usually going to filter through the superintendent's office.
I only asked because we were adding the deputy superintendent. Is that language that we might have to put in there?
Oh.
If some of those responsibilities can be going to a deputy superintendent.
I think it's a good point. Yeah, I mean, you're thinking that. So
So that, yeah, I mean, that
the
may be
deputy-
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the language we have. It's sort of like a find and replace that we should do throughout the whole thing, right? And we're the superintendent or designate.
Good point.
And we've made those changes in a number of places, and I know that was a couple of the edits. I'm not saying we need to throw this to a third reading and bring it back next month in order to do that, but it may be something that we can look at for the next edit and update, you know, to make some district edits to some of that, because I imagine Anna probably can't do like a find and replace
Yeah.
through the Press Plus serve it, to kind of see where that, and then see where other places it may.
What I'm gonna say though, even for this review though, if we wanted to, we could submit this one. Right, anywhere we see superintendent, we could, let's do that, just put that, identify where it should be designated. Okay.
And again, like anything else, even if one of your deputies, if you're rubber stamping it and still signing off on it, it's still, I think, it adheres to the policy, but, may as well be accurate, right? Let's see here in 6210, it does say superintendent or designee shall annually list a description of textbooks and instructional materials used in the district to the Board of Education. Anyone may inspect any textbook or instructional material. It talks about what materials we do use and don't use, including textbooks, workbook, audiovisual, etc. No R-rated movies are shown in classroom zones. Prior approvals are received. And as always, superintendent designee shall give parents or guardians an opportunity to request that a child not participate in a class or showing a movie, television program, or other media with an R equivalent rating. So, we don't impose that on everybody. Everybody always has the option to opt their child out of any of those types of things. And then here at the bottom of that, though, where it says instruction materials, selection and adoption, then it just says the superintendent shall approve the selection of all textbooks. So probably should say and designate there too, even though it says it right up 2 paragraphs above, but that's one of those, like I said, it almost could be just a find and replace everywhere just to be internally consistent, but.
I put on a note, we can go
Yeah.
through that search.
6230 is the library media program. And so this is setting forth that obviously we're going to manage the district's library media program to comply with state law, ISB rules, and the following standards. And it lists a bunch of standards and what we're going to provide to the students in our media centers or libraries. Any parents, guardians, employees, or community members who believe something in our library media program violate the rights guaranteed by any law or board policy, they can file a complaint using the grievance procedure and so forth. Obviously, there's a way, and it talks about how to go through that if anybody has an issue. Access to electronic networks. The network, internet services, wireless services, computers, PDAs, digital cameras or video recorders. This is our whole policy on how the technology will be used by our district. We have a duty, Board of Education has a duty to ensure that the manner in which the technology resources are used do not conflict with basic education missions of the district. Use of the district's technology resources may be restricted in light of the maturity level of the students involved and special characteristics of the school environment. Not permitting things that disrupt the proper and orderly operation of the districts or discipline, threatens the integrity or efficient operation of the computer. We don't want to teach kids how to hack into it. Not violating the rights of others is socially inappropriate or out of the kid's age level. To that end, we have, for everyone that doesn't wear, so we do have things in place to limit our kids' access to certain things. Like just because they have a Chromebook, they can't get, it does not give them unfettered access to all things all the time, on the internet. I don't know all the details of that, but obviously we do have this is the overarching policy that then they have taken on a deeper level to deal with that. Then talks about electronic networks are considered to be part of our instructional program, and therefore they have to serve educational purposes. And then it defines some of those, including Wi-Fi networks, etc. And any district owns or district issues computers, such. Superintendent shall develop an implementation plan and appoint system administrators. District is not responsible for any unauthorized charges or fees resulting from the use of access to the internet. So curriculum and appropriate online behavior is spelled out. acceptable use and what it's supposed to be used for, internet safety for kids, confidentiality. The failure of anyone to violate all of this can result in loss of privileges, disciplinary action, and or appropriate legal action. Then access privileges are defined, that can be given or taken away as needed. Then here we go with field trips and recreational class trips in 6240. All field trips have to have prior approval from the superintendent or designee, except that those beyond a 200-mile radius must have prior approval of the Board of Education. And we've done that in the past when we've sent groups to things. They did, they fundraised and stuff for that. Superintendent has to, or designee, analyze following factors to determine whether or not to approve a field trip: educational value, student safety, parent concerns, heightened security alerts, and liability concerns. On all field trips, a bus fee set by the superintendent or designee may be charged to help defray transportation costs. Now that's where we don't charge bus fees anymore because we can change that, didn't we? So that probably needs to be. And privately arranged trips, like when 7th graders go to, or 8th graders go to Springfield, things like that. Those are not considered school field trips. Those are privately arranged. They could be even led by staff members, but it's optional. It's not provided by the district, and those do have charges and things associated with those, and not responsible for any damages. That is the end of our section 15. Moving on, does anyone have any other questions or comments on board policy, riveting as it is? Moving on to the committee updates from Finance Advisory. Updates.
No, next meeting is, in October.
And shared services.
Yes, we met last week. And basically the agenda that was set for our upcoming meetings are the superintendent evaluation, salary matrix, and then the process of hiring a new superintendent in the future, just coming up with maybe a philosophy on those things. So we're ahead of it. You should be getting your login for the super eval from Anna at some point. And when you do, maybe just log in and take a look around. We'll walk you through that process too, but it is pretty easy to view. And the nice thing is that Kevin's going to be able to update it throughout the year, so we're not getting all of the information at once towards the end, so we can provide feedback as an ongoing process. Anything to add?
No, I think it's great that we're being proactive here. Whenever the next superintendent does happen, will be the first time that the two districts hire a superintendent through shared services. So again, I just think it's great that we're being proactive and come into it with a plan.
Community outreach. Nothing at this
No,
point
not
yet.
yet.
No. Okay.
Still trying to get our legs and
Understood.
see where we're going with this.
Okay. All right, well, moving towards the representative updates, the STEAM Foundation. I can report that as we saw tonight, so Nikki has moved on, and we generally for the STEAM Foundation take a summer kind of off, but we did have our first meeting a week or two ago, and or a couple weeks ago. They did appoint they all agreed and appointed Melissa Theodore as the president, so she's taking over it's kind of a small group, so we're always looking for more members, if anyone knows of anyone that wants to get involved. I've invited a few other people, to try to join to see if they want to participate, because it's a good way to sort of get involved, get to know some people, and then, for other opportunities as they come up. We are in the process, they are going to be at Bratfest, which I hope all of you will also be at. We'll get to that later. And that's, when we get to, as a board with the admin team, kind of, give back and participate and help serve food to the families that come. This year, I know the PTO is doing it a little bit differently. Where they're not charging for a lot of the activities and events, they're still charging for the food, but for the activities and events, rather than selling like a ticket or a wristband or what have you. So they're asking all of the community or organizations that are participating to do like a game or some interactive thing, in addition to just like a table passing out flyers. So the STEAM Foundation, we almost always have a table, and they've been doing the last few years. They're planning to do it again this year with having little kits for the kids to make blinky necklaces with batteries and I don't remember, it's like they have to put it together and tape something, and then they end up with like a blinky light on the necklace that all the kids seem to like, and it's relatively inexpensive. So I know that the STEAM Foundation has put those together again. And it's
Will we get one?
Huh?
Can we get one?
I will make sure that you got one. We'll help you make one at the thing. That's always a fun, activity, and it just teaches the kids something STEM related, but also fun, and then, gives an opportunity to get information about some of the fundraisers and stuff that they're trying to do. I know they're still working with the powers that be to try to set some of the dates for the fundraisers that will be throughout the year. I know they're trying to figure out a location and a place and a time for the night of the races. They want to do that again, and then pizza throw-out this spring. So we'll keep you posted on that. We've already heard from Eric on the CEDAW representative update tonight. So last but not least, village liaison. Is there anything to report on that front?
Not really for us, but I did want to mention that the board approved chickens.
Okay.
So they have chickens in their yard, so.
My neighbors already have it.
I was like, there's a bunch of people I know that do too. So now it's legal. Great.
Cool.
Maybe I'll get that too from my neighbors.
Does it say anything about roosters? Because my neighbors have one too.
I know some, I don't know what our Mundelein ordinance said, but I know some say that chickens are, certain, like hens are allowed, but not roosters, but I don't know what. Said one way or the other. But I've always been, we are a no pet household, so I'm not dealing with chickens or dogs or anybody else, so doesn't impact me. All right. Okay, so moving on, we have the consent agenda. If any board member would like an item to be removed from the consent agenda that was in your packet, to be tabled for further discussion, now is the time to communicate that request. It's okay to proceed. I move that the Board of Education of Mundelein Elementary School District 75 move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Yeah.
Aye.
Hitzke.
Aye.
Aguirre.
Aye.
Louis, aye. Duran, absent. Carl,
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Then moving on to the board action items. I move that the Board of Education of Mundelein Elementary School District 75 accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the following job descriptions as presented: the deputy superintendent, the building principal updated, and the grants and Medicaid supervisor.
Second.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Finger.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Carl.
Aye.
Hitzke.
Aye.
Duran, absent. Billatier, aye. Aguirre.
Aye. And then moving on, I move that the Board of Education of Mundelein Elementary School District 75 accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve press plus 112, second and final reading with the district edits as presented.
Second.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Finger.
Aye.
Hitzke.
Aye.
Aguirre.
Aye.
Pelletier, aye. Durin, absent. Carl,
Aye.
Rose,
And well, last board action item, I move that the Board of Education of Mundelein Elementary School District 75 accept the superintendent's recommendation to authorize the superintendent Myers to withdraw from CEDAL if determined appropriate.
Second.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Fingerhead.
Aye.
Carl,
Aye.
Rose,
Aye.
Hitzke.
Aye.
Pelletier, aye. Aguirre.
Aye.
Durin, absent.
I move that the Board of Education meeting will adjourn to executive session at 7:43 PM for the purposes of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. Also for discussion of minutes of meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act, whether proposed or whether for purpose of approval by the body for the minutes or semi-annual review of the minutes as mandated by statute.
Second,
Secretary, please call the roll.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Be adjourned.
We're good? Okay.
Okay. So we will call to order once again, the open session, return to order at 8:21 PM. Secretary, please call the roll.
Fingerhead.
Aye, here.
Rose.
Here.
Carl,
Here.
Hitzke.
Here.
Durin, absent. Pelletier, here. Aguirre.
Okay, so with no further comments, being taken in executive session, I move that we accept the executive session meeting minutes from both June 20th, 2023 and July 13th, 2023 as presented.
Second.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Fingerhead.
Aye.
Carl,
Aye.
Aguirre.
Aye.
Pelletier, aye. Durin, absent. Hitzke.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
That being our last action item for the evening, now for President's prerogative, I just wanted to remind everybody that, and I'm sure we'll get a formal invite from Anna probably pretty soon, but Bratfest will be set Friday, September 8th. I don't know exactly what time, but I imagine we'll get that from Anna, what time they will need us all to be there. Is that the same day as the homecoming?
It is. So they're organizing it. We've had it before where they're saying where homecoming will start off and then Bratfest usually like for parent people that are on the curb. Try to probably have something at the beginning and then after the parades went through. Still going off with all the brats, so.
Yeah. So- Understood that, there's things gonna be competing going on different places, but if you're able to come over for any part of it, it's a fun time. It's a little work too. We actually, we put gloves on and help either cook or serve or do, things like that, with that. So if you're able to, that's great. If you have other commitments and you can't, that's okay. We won't kick you out. But, it is definitely inviting everybody to participate with that because it is a fun time and it's an opportunity for the community to see us. Many of them don't know us necessarily, so it's an opportunity for them to see us there doing that. And I will make sure that Ray gets a Blinky necklace at Broadfest and anybody else that wants to make one as well with the D75 Steam Foundation. So.
And I think the important thing, just with Bratfest, it's gonna be marked pilot / Bratfest.
That's
That's the principle. So you're saying 33 out of the 57 years it's been running, he's been there. So just a little nostalgia.
It's usually a huge hit too. It's nonstop
Oh,
the entire time.
The kids enjoy it, and like I said, the PTO is making it different this year to try to make it more open to the public and people that want to attend. They usually have like bounce house and they have some stuff like that that used to cost money, which then deterred some families from coming. So they tried to do something different this year and do that way. So it should be a fun time because everything is so quickly at the beginning of the year this year with homecoming and everything. We won't get all the family participation since, I know half of my family will all be at the high school, but that is what it is. So I wanted to make sure we invited everybody and reminded everybody before you get on a message about that to try to mark that on your calendars and see if you can go. And we'll get in touch with exactly times and how that works. I did not have anything else particularly on my list of things to discuss. Is there anything else? Anyone has any ideas for future agenda topics or items you want to hear more about?
Good.
Okay. I know that Marcella is planning to be at the next board meeting. Tonight was their first night of classes and they needed her to participate, even though she got permission to generally appear here and not have it be a conflict, she had to go to the first one. So I told her it was really okay. It's okay. Sometimes we have to miss. It's fine. So she plans to join us the next time. And now that she's all sworn in, she was here last time for those that weren't here, then she's ready to go. So, and she's had her orientation with a lot of the different groups and she spent a lot of time down here and got a little overwhelmed, I hear. Glazed over, but I think that she'll be good to go and we'll be ready to hit the ground running. And I know that only Al and I were able to attend the welcome day meeting, but we understood. Many of you were in education and you had some other things, and that's okay. We totally understand. So we understood not everybody could be there, but
And
I
Christy
did.
gave a great speech.
I did give a little speech on behalf of everyone, and I told them about the strategic plan and the fact that we're welcome. We now have a full board with two new
So
board
can you
members.
do a speech for us?
You want me to do the speech?
It was good, Ray. Just a good.
I can send it out if you'd like. Maybe that's easier. I do have it as a PDF. But I did welcome everybody on our behalf, so I can send
It was
it,
good.
I can email it out to
It was
everyone.
good.
And like I said, Dr. Myers, even though they had the lectern all set up and everything right before he goes, do you want to use the lectern? I'm not going to. Well, then I guess I'm not now. Like, am I gonna be the only one standing up on the little stage above everybody in the whole room? No, okay, well, so I had my thing here, which of course had 3 pages, and then I'm holding the mic trying to okay, let me see if I can flip the page. Well, it's a little awkward, but it's okay. Okay. Next time I'll bring my note cards or I'll just memorize it. No, we don't.
Either that will get you a wireless mic.
Well, that was a wireless mic. Oh, like a, yeah. Like Britney Spears. No, I'm
No hands.
It's all good. No, so. We good, and I would just, no, but it's. No, but it's good, and I think. I will also say, and I guess I should have said this earlier with the board comments. I think it's positive, we didn't hear a bunch of late buses, we didn't hear about, sometimes that first week of school is a little rocky with some of those things, so I hope that that's going to continue and that's, good things to come. So that speaks highly of, the planning and everything that went into a lot of that hopefully that all went well. I didn't see any chatter online about a whole bunch of things. So that's hopefully good. There's been a little chatter, I guess, about the lunch menu. I will say my kit, because we have a new vendor, as you recall, that we approved. My child seems to like it okay the couple days he's had, but I've heard, I guess, some people didn't always agree, but obviously you're dealing with a bunch of kids, so we'll see how that goes.
My kids
Okay.
love it.
Okay.
They said it's better than last year.
Good.
You always find somebody that's not. gonna-
Right.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, we'll keep monitoring that just to, so obviously, we're not making it something, we're making any changes on it. The biggest complaint I've seen, which has nothing to do with our control, is that there's no app. The lunch menu from the other vendor had an app that everybody could check every morning to see what the lunch menu was, and that's not, however. It's on our website, this is the link, and many times have we posted screenshots and the link to everybody, so it's not like anybody can't check it on a daily
I didn't
basis.
even know there was an app. I've always just checked the website.
There was, but
Even-
yeah, News for Slice was the app, but whatever, so but again, that's just that people's change, that doesn't mean anything. I think it's a very colorful menu, they have it set up, they used to have like a hot and a cold lunch every day, they still do, it's just. They have the same cold lunch every Monday, every Tuesday, every Wednesday, so it's on the side, so people sometimes got a little confused by it, but. It's okay, I think we'll be okay. Go ahead, you can go.
Yeah, did
Yeah.
we adjourn?
Yeah, well, we're not, we're almost done, so, but you can, so, if no one has any other items to add, then, we certainly can adjourn. Are we all good?
Yeah.
Okay, so we can adjourn, then I move to adjourn the meeting at 8:30 PM.
Second.
All of
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Good night.
There you go. Now we're adjourned. Go ahead.